So our previous programs, programs 6.3 through essentially 6.8, when we would make a call to a function, you'll notice that those were void functions. They didn't actually return anything. That doesn't mean that they didn't do work. They do the work there inside of the function, and if there was an output or anything like that, it would have outputted there. But then nothing was actually returned. There was no changes made to the data that happened there inside of your main function. What we can do is actually build a function that does return a value. We can actually see this on program 6.12. That's on page 326. Now, there's a couple of really small changes, but important changes that we have to notice here in program 6.12. The first is, if you look at the function prototype on line number 6, you'll notice that instead of void, we actually have a return type is specified. That is, in this case, int. This can be string, this can be character, this can be double, it can be whatever you want. But what we are letting the compiler know is that the expected return type is actually listed here in the declaration for that function prototype. So int sum is the prototype we've got here. What we are letting the compiler know is that the function called sum is going to take two integer values, and that's inside of those parentheses. Int comma int tells the compiler, hey, expect to receive two integer values. And the very first keyword there, int, suggests that, hey, you're going to return to us an integer value as well. We can see there on lines essentially 10 through 12 that we have value 1 and 2. That value 1 and 2 we're actually going to give a default value to, so 20 and 40. And then on line 17, total equals sum. So that's a call to the function called sum. And in the parentheses there, we have value 1 and value 2. Value 1 comma value 2. So what line number 17 there is suggesting is as follows. Remember, when we do math in C++, everything that happens on the right-hand side of the equals happens first. So the very first thing we're going to do is pass value 1 and value 2 to the function sum. So that means go drop down to lines 30 through 33. You'll notice sum receives those two values, number 1 and number 2. And then we return actually a mathematical expression there. What we're doing is we're adding 1 and 2. So what C++ is going to do is take number 1, that's the value, or the contained therein is 20. Add that to number 2, and that's 40. And it's going to return the value of 60. Now what that's doing is going to go right back to line 17. And what that says is 60 equals total now. So total is going to assume the value of 60. So we're going to store 60 in the variable container called total. Then what you'll notice is when we output on line number 21 total, that it actually contains 60 there. So you can see the program output there. That's how we would have a value returning function. Now, what I'm going to do is you'll see there's a cpp.sh. Yay, it's back. Link right under this particular podcast listed here on the Chapter 6 podcast page. And what I'll have for you, you can step through it, is you'll see monthly payment calculator as a function that does not return anything. And you will see a different monthly payment calculator that actually has a return value there as well. And you'll see the difference between calling a void function and calling a returning or a value returning function. Very, very subtle differences. Really the only changes you can see here on line number 6 on page 326. When we define the function prototype, the very first keyword there is the return type. So integer float, double, character, string, etc. And then the name of the function. And inside of the parentheses, it is the number and the type of values to be passed. And then inside of the actual function itself, we're returning something. That something can be used now in main, whereas before with void, potentially we would not have had anything change inside of main.